come back, but to legislate, or not to legislate. And because, especially with some of the things that said, you know, we're talking about these things like trust and having that ability, or inculcating an organization at management. And a lot of it seems like education. I mean, all of it seems like education. But would you go so far as deeming it necessary to legislate? And it's all your mic, and we'll record this for all prosperity.
Yeah, I think you can record it, and my feeling is, you are most probably recording it anyway. My feeling is that things have changed a lot. I think in the last 2 elections alone, you know, the Ontario legislature alone has a very different mix of the people that sit in the legislature now than what it was, I will say, going back to 1999. You know, I have some statistics that I can give you because I am the chair of the Indo-Canadian Parliamentary Association. I think in 1993 we had 2 people in the Parliament in Canada, 2 people in the Parliament of Indo-Canadian descent. Right now, 27. Right? So from 1993 to now, it has changed a lot. My own experience is when I look at the Ontario legislature, you know, I see people from all cultures there right now represented. Maybe not in the same proportion you would like to see. We need to get more female maybe in the legislature than what we have right now. But I think with time, it's all going to change. I don't think we need to legislate anything at all.
Okay, any? No.
The bureaucracy has some catching up to do to catch up to the political representation that there is, but I do think we've made great strides, and we are seeing a difference in the folks that are sitting around the table in no short measure as a result of Shelley Jameson's commitment to this and doing her part in increasing the representation around the deputy minister's table as well.
That's a good question, because how do you increase that representation?
Yeah, I think the one way to do is actually to educate our people, right? We need to get the groups involved and get them involved in our political process and tell them why it is so important for them to have their representation at the legislative level. Why it's important to have someone of their culture sitting at the cabinet table, because these are the important things. And I think so we need to engage them, we need to get them involved and get them more interested in the political process. If we don't do that, I think the legislature would not achieve anything.
And how about in your organizations then, to increase that representation? I don't just want to say representation, we had that discussion. I mean to serious levels of, senior levels of management. There was a research survey done by employment a search firm, or a recruiting firm, and earlier in the year, and says only 7.2% of the top companies in Canada are, at the top echelons, are represented by women officers or senior management. How do you, what is it within your organizations you're doing to increase that representation? And I'll start with BMO, and we'll just go down to...
So we're very thoughtful. I do know that one of our executives, when we submit candidates for roles, and he gets what we call a slate of names, if it's not diverse, he sends it back. So he's expecting it to be a diverse slate. So how you do that is you engage your leaders, and then they hold you accountable, and they hold the recruiting companies accountable to bring them a diverse slate. At the end of the day, you still want the best person for the role. But what you want to make sure that you have is a full slate of diverse candidates, high-quality candidates, so you can make the right choice. And as you get your leaders more engaged to expecting that that's going to be coming to them, then you make different choices. But having a couple of our leaders actually send them back, it sends a strong message that they're not going to take anything less than that.
Okay, Samia, CBC.
Yeah, I was frantically taking my notes while I'm talking. No, I think you raise a very valid point. You know, a lot of times we have these debates internally about how the diverse people are always at the bottom. And the higher up you go, you don't see much diversity, and we are making a conscious effort to integrate diversity into all our practices, whether it's mentoring, whether it's training, whether it's succession planning, And an example of that is we have a program called Ready to Lead. It's for upcoming managers and business leaders. And what we want to do is set targets that the participants of that Ready to Lead program should be representative of employees from diverse backgrounds. Because if we are training them and mentoring them to become the leaders of tomorrow, we should make sure that everybody is represented and included in that group. So having these sort of mechanisms which exist throughout the employee life cycles from the minute they enter the organization to their progression and career development, and integrating and plugging in diversity to each one of them, I think is very integral.
And Taj?
Very similar to what Natalie had mentioned for BMO. As senior roles in the organization are becoming available, directors and executives in the organization, in the respective organizations, are now holding the decision maker responsible for that were considered. So it's driving accountability. It's driving accountability down to the
Absolutely, and that's something that we're looking at doing as well. You do have to look at it for the entire recruitment cycle, if you will, from recruitment to retirement. So how are we engaging our communities? Had the opportunity to speak with Deputy Chief Slowly about what the Toronto Police are doing in this area. And one of the things he said to us was that a few years ago they started to engage the South Asian community, and what they were doing was talking to the young people directly, and they weren't having much of an uptake. And then they realized that you need to be talking to the parents, and that made a huge difference in their ability to be able to attract and retain people from that community. So it's understanding the communities that we're trying to form relationships with. Are we casting the net as widely as we possibly can? Who are the people that are being selected for secondment opportunities? Are we going back to the same trough? And those are the people who have the developmental opportunities and then become the outliers, if you will, to coin Malcolm Gladwell's term. So we need to look at all of those things and how those impact us systemically. Often when we talk about barriers, we tend to think that these are intentional barriers, but I think that if we're not awake to how our actions can impact the systems that we work within, they become entrenched systemic barriers. So our approach is certainly to look at attitudinal barriers through the education and training process, but also to look at systemic barriers on a whole lot of different levels.